Hello you guys, it is Miss Cal Rage, which is short for Miss Changelot, which is my main channel where I post gotcha reaction videos. Today we are going to be reading a Byler fanfiction on AO3 that actually I wrote. This is 100% mine, so this will be one of the main videos that will be monetized and will help me continue doing this. And also will pay for my college in the future, so if you guys would like to support a small YouTube content creator and a writer, interact with this video. You don't need to donate. I'm not asking for donations, I'm just asking for interactions. That's how I make money. So, without further ado, the name is I'll Lose My Mind, parentheses, at least another 1,000 times, end parentheses. And it's by me, which, if you don't know already, I am Pink Ghost, with a 0 as the O in Ghost on AO3. So yeah, this is my fanfic. Enjoy! It didn't feel right. Mike sat at his bulky computer absent-mindedly, feeling cool keys under his hands as he continued writing his novel. With each word he wrote, he focuses less and less on the story in front of him. He didn't know where the words were coming from, but they were spilling out onto the screen. A picture-perfect fantasy story mapped like the campaign in 1983, the day Will got taken. It had been a few weeks since the party parted ways. It had all been going according to what Mike envisioned. Lucas and Max were now traveling the world together. How they had gotten the money for that, he wasn't sure. Dustin had moved a few hours away to a prestigious college, only making time to hang out with Steve anymore. Even though it had been a few weeks, they were basically cut contact now. And then there was Will. Mike's eyes burned and his throat became scratchy at the thought of Will now. Like Mike had made up at the end of their D&D campaign in May, Will was now in New York, majoring in art, already picking up traction for his beautiful work. That's not what upset Mike. Will had kept in contact with Mike the most since they all graduated, but even they fizzled out and stopped talking. The last phone call they ever made to one another, Will told Mike excitedly about his new boyfriend, Carlton. What a stupid fucking name, Mike had thought. But he couldn't be mad at Will for moving on for him. That wasn't fair to Will, especially because of what he said at the radio tower in '87. Friends? No thanks. Best friends. The memory buzzed in his mind, and Mike wished for every fiber of his being that he could reach into his mind, shake his 16-year-old self's shoulders, and shout, "Wake the hell up! Mike!" The violent shout echoed in Mike's ears. His eyes snapped up from his computer, forcing his fingers off the keyboard with almost all his might. He stood up, looking around. The scream hadn't been in his internal monologue, he was sure of it. After a beat, he heard a different voice. "Mike, please, it isn't real, please just wake up!" For some reason it sounded like Nancy, but Nancy had moved. She had gone on that internship, something Mike would never have imagined her doing, and moved far away from Hawkins. There was no way this was real. Mike sighed, going to sit back down to his bulky computer where he had been typing his story previously, except the computer was no longer there. It was now a typewriter at his desk, with a neat stack of paper beside it. Mike gulped. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. He was just having a nightmare. He pinched himself. Nothing. He slapped himself. Nothing. He squeezed his eyes shut for a minute, only opening them when he started to see colors in his eyelids. Nothing. Maybe he was just tired. Yeah, that had to be it. Mike lazily walked back upstairs, hanging onto the railing for dear life. Once he passed the fridge, he paused. Looking back at the magnets plastered on the fridge, his eyes snap when he reads what the colorful magnetic letters say. "This isn't real. Wake up." He staggers backwards, looking around for any sign of life in the house. "Holly? Mom? This isn't funny. In fact, I'm really freaked right now." No answer. Mike sighs, and then he hears another voice that was unmistakable. It was Max. "Mike, listen, you need to look for things that feel wrong. Anything that's different. Maybe a different color or a different placement. That is your way through the memories. Jane will find you through them. You need to trust me. Jane? 11, she was... Mike's attention turns back to the fridge. Was it always light blue? Mike stares at it for so long he might look crazy. No, it was definitely never blue. Mike sighs to himself. There was no way he was about to try and go through a fridge. He'd officially lost it. But he decided to humor himself, opening the fridge, expecting to feel a cool breeze and see old leftovers stacked in the shelves. Instead, he saw a rocky environment, followed by a cliff. There were trees. A lot of them. Mike cautiously stepped into the fridge, which disappeared as he walked through it. It took him a while to realize where he was. He was at the quarry. It had been so long since Mike had been there, he hated the memories attached to it. Mike being forced to jump off the cliff was traumatizing enough, yeah, but Mike only ever saw flashbacks to watching Will's 12-year-old body being dragged out of the lake by police. He snapped out of his thoughts when he heard rapid running, sneakers squeaking on the rocks as the young Dustin and Mike ran to the corner where the cliff was. Troy and James followed. Mike zoned out until he finally heard Troy yelling for Mike to jump. He saw a young version of himself inch closer and closer to the edge of the cliff as Troy counted down. He watched as he plummeted off the quarry. Dustin, Troy, and James all running to the edge, checking if Mike had died or not. He doesn't need to watch the rest of the memory to know where the anomaly is. There was a bush near the cliff where he jumped, one that he was sure wasn't there. He cautiously walks past Troy, James, and Dustin, who don't seem to see him. He sighs out of relief and he pushes the leaves aside in the bush, feeling a cold gust of wind as he falls through it. He's now in his garage, the pouring rain soaking his hair, which would be a pain in the ass to straighten later. When did he ever straighten his hair? But before his inner monologue can answer, he sees the door swung open, Will storming out, and Mike going after him. Oh, it's that summer. Mike winces as he hears 14-year-old Mike trying to reconcile with Will. We're just not in the mood right now. Will snaps back. Yeah, Mike, that's the problem. You guys are never in the mood anymore. You're ruining our party. Will was right. Mike had acted like a royal asshole then. He had totally ignored Will all summer, as well as the rest of the party when he would leave for hours to make out with 11. And then he made fun of Will when he tried to dungeon master that night, which Mike physically smacks himself in the head for. He had always found it endearing when Will would write a campaign, when he would lower his voice to a whisper when something would happen, or how he'd say Mike's name when asking for his action. He had even found himself staring that night. And then he ruined it. And he didn't know why he would... That's a lie. He knew why he would lash out on Will that summer, why he would sneak around with 11 making out and whispering and giggling like he thought any normal couple should do. Why had he said that thing? It's not my fault you don't like girls. He hears his 14-year-old self saying. He swallows dryly. He hadn't meant it that way, at least not for Will. Mike's eyes tear up as he watches Will bike home, his younger self burying his head in his hands as he realized just how shitty that was. He wants to rip himself up just thinking about it. What led him to say that, why Vecna would even show him this. Without realizing, he starts to cry. His cheeks flood with tears as choked sobs escape his throat. He fucked up, and he fucked up badly. He could barely think about it, and he wanted to stay there, sobbing all of his fear out, all his insecurity, all his self-loathing, when he feels a hand on his shoulder, which he immediately glances to, recognizing the tacky gray, red, and blue wetsuit right away. It's 11. He knew she was alive. That was made clear when Max was able to contact him earlier, but he still couldn't believe his eyes. Mike, it is okay. I saw what Henry showed you. I know. His heart drops, and it looks like 11 is holding back tears, which only makes him feel worse. I know you don't love me. At least like that. Mike didn't want to come to terms with it. He couldn't. So he just forced himself to stand up and turn to face Elle properly. I'm sorry, is all he could force out, We do not have time. I need to guide you through the rest of the memories. Mike looks around for something out of place. When he starts to give up, he sees a bin that's labeled Will and Mike. It was just a bin full of their old childhood items like crayons and pictures, but it meant a lot to Mike. He could have sworn he had it tucked safely under the desk in his room. He hadn't ever put it in the garage. Mike moves the bin, and sure enough, there's a hole leading down to the inside of the Byer's old house. He lowers himself carefully into the new setting, catching Elle as she does the same. They look around the room until they hear a soft, "I love you too." Mike turns around to see 14-year-old 11 kissing Mike in front of his closet. It was right before they moved to California. He had his eyes wide open, almost looking disgusted with the kiss, but mostly confused. Mike can't look at Elle, but she squeezes his shoulder as if it's okay, and Mike forces himself to look back to the scene. He already knew it was different. The closet was closed. Mike shamefully opens the door to find a new setting. Recent. Familiar. The radio station. As Mike starts to head into there, Elle takes his hand. "I cannot go any farther, Mike. You need to do this part on your own." Mike panics a little. "Why? Just come with me. I can't do this without you," he begs. "Mike, you can do this. I believe," she says, holding his hand. "When we get out of this, and we will, alive, I'll dump your ass. For more than a few days this time." He chuckles at that along with her, and they hug. "Please don't sacrifice yourself, Elle. I can't do it. Not again." He whispers into her ear, pleading. "I promised Hopper. I'm going to promise you too," she says, cupping his face. She then steps back and motions for him to go. He hesitates, looking back at the scene. Could he really do this? Could he really get over this petrifying feeling that he had deep-rooted within him? When Elle gives him another reassured nod, he sighs and steps into the memory. He could hear Will's voice, his confession. I don't like girls," Will says, and Mike sees this recent version of himself shift slightly. He remembers it, the hope that suddenly coursed through his veins, the feeling of not being alone. He had even considered coming out too. Why hadn't he? But then Will continues, and he remembers why. "And I had this crush, though I know they're not like me. And then I realized that he's just my Tammy." That's why Mike hadn't said anything. That statement alone made him feel trapped, that was still the expectation of him. Mike felt like his stomach might explode. He was never Mike the brave, he was always a coward. "That's why you always mess things up, Michael." The voice was cold and deep and familiar, though Mike couldn't put his finger on it. He had heard it a multitude of times within the last 2 years, on and off. "Shut up," he tried. "I never realized just what a degree of a coward you are." "You don't know me," he argues, covering his head with his hands. "Oh, but I do, Michael." And with that, his surroundings melted into red and black. Jagged rocks emerged from the ground, and it shook violently. Mike collapsed on his knees as the floor beneath him became more and more unstable. As Mike forced himself back on his legs, a red figure appeared in front of him, inching closer until Mike could make out what, or who, was walking towards him. It was Vecna. Mike stepped back in fear, tripping over a vine that was on the ground. "Stay the hell away from me," he yelled, panicking more and more with each step, while Vecna took every step calm and collected. "You ruined everything between you and William, just because you were too scared." "Shut up," Mike says again, covering his ears. Despite all this effort to deny what Vecna was telling him, he knew he was right. He was a coward. He was too proud and too afraid of what others may think to ever tell Will how he felt. He had hurt him, and all in the name of Mike's stupid insecurity. He had lost Will for good. Will was probably in a bar now with his stupid Carlton boyfriend, laughing and drinking and giggling as Carlton told him some stupid joke that Mike could do 10 times better. but that wasn't real. It had all been a trance. Mike still had a chance. A chance to make things right. A chance to tell everyone and be honest and to tell Will. To tell him why he had treated him like absolute shit between 1985 and 1986. He hadn't lost him yet. At this realization, Mike is able to find the strength to run from him. So he does. He runs and runs until one of Vecna's stupid vines grabs him by the ankle, slamming his face into the floor and dragging him back. He kicks wildly, screaming and hollering for Vecna to just let go of him. He claws at the ground, desperately trying to resist the agonizing pain and force taking him away from the real world. He didn't even know where he was running to. There was no portal like he had been told before, and he didn't even know where he was. Nonetheless, he kept attempting to run away. Eventually, when all the strength wore out, Vecna was able to drag him all the way back, raising Mike's almost limp body on a pillar of sorts, vines starting to choke him and holding him back in the pillar. Mike's vision blurs, partially because he cannot breathe and he is slowly going into hypoxia, but also because of tears. Because he failed Will again. He failed on that one extra chance he had to get back to the boy he loved. Tears rolled down his cheeks, slight sobs coming out of his closed throat. Please, Will. He musters out, even if Will can't help him. He wants to give Will a sign, anything that would even slightly indicate that he needs help. And now we're switching scenes to the radio tower. Will couldn't keep his composure together. Not when Mike, his best friend, the boy he loved, had his eyes rolled all the way back into his skull. He hadn't realized immediately that Mike was in a trance. Honestly, he had thought that Mike was zoned out because he was weirded out by Will. After he had said that they were best friends, he had gone real quiet, much to Will's discomfort. And he felt awful for feeling uncomfortable. He knew Mike didn't feel the same way, and he knew that it was never meant to be. It didn't make it any easier. But here Will is, eyes drowning with tears, screaming Mike's name, how he needed to wake up, waiting for Mike's eyes to roll back down for him to finally wake from the trance. His voice had gone hoarse. It had been 18 minutes already. He was getting worried, as if he was already scared shitless. Nancy was beside Will, shaking Mike's shoulders, just trying to snap him out of it. Robin was on the other side of Will, holding Will's shoulder as he was sobbing into his hand. Lucas was behind them, his stare scared and blank at the same time. He was tearing up. Will could tell that he was not prepared for this to happen again. Max had woken up, but she couldn't move and likely would have to graduate a couple years after they did, due to how much school she missed, and that sucked. After a few seconds of silence, Nancy had stopped screaming, and Will covered his mouth enough to muffle his sobs. Mike's body started to stiffen, slowly rising into the air. Will's eyes widen in horror as Mike's head tilts up, his hands to his sides, hanging in the air. He felt like he couldn't breathe. He couldn't say anything. He couldn't do anything. He felt helpless. Nancy was yelling louder than ever now, screaming for Mike to wake the fuck up and to not listen to him. Will could barely understand anything Robin was whispering into his ear. Probably something reassuring. Maybe she was telling him that Mike would be okay and he wouldn't just let Vecna win, but Will was too focused on the boy levitating before them. It would be coming any second now. The snapping of the bones, the bleeding of the eyes, causing temporary blindness. Before that could happen, or before Will could even think straight, he ran up to Mike, grabbing his hand from the air, and says half-heartedly, "Mike, please wake up. I need you." So now we're back in Vecna's mind with Mike. Mike could feel someone grab his hand, which was weird since he was completely bound by Vecna's vines, and it sure as hell wasn't Vecna grabbing his hand with a force so small. He felt comforted. "Mike, please wake up. I need you." The voice was weak, and hearing it made Mike want to break into tears. It was Will. Will was calling for him. Will needed him. Mike could also hear the faint melody of Small Town Boy playing from a speaker Lucas had clumsily brought over. Vecna turned his head slightly, and as he did, Mike could catch a glimpse of the radio tower. He saw himself floating. Will holding his hand, Robin clutching Will's shoulder, Nancy looking wide-eyed at Will, and Lucas behind them, staring up in disbelief. It was a portal. Mike wanted so bad to break out the vines, to tell Will everything he couldn't say before. He struggled against them, and while the presence of Will loosened them enough for Mike to breathe, he couldn't get out of the bind. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable at the radio station building. I know you aren't like me. But please, Mike, please wake up, Will said, and Mike could feel a slight squeeze on his hand. With each word, the vines loosened a little. Vecna, obviously pissed off. His words about Will lying to Mike and how Mike had ruined everything. Mike was only semi-focused on those words until Will whispers, Mike barely catching it. I'll always need you. I'll always love you even if you don't love me back. That seemed to loosen the vines enough so that Mike fell down to the ground, stumbling. Once he caught his footing, he ran around Vecna, sprinting with all the strength he had left to the portal. He heard the vines coursing behind him, trying to drag him back, but he stomped on them this time, continuing to run to Will. Eventually, as he ran closer and closer to the image of the radio tower, pillars and clocks and parts of the Creel house came crashing down around Mike. He had barely dodged a door when he finally made it to the portal, sprinting and jumping into it, eyes closed to prepare himself to fall from 10 feet in the air. His eyes snapped open, the cold air the upside down immediately slapping his skin as he plummeted down from where he had been levitating. Will quickly was able to, for the most part, catch him, immediately bringing him closer and embracing him as tightly as possible. Mike was frozen for a second before quickly grabbing a hold of whatever was closest. This would be Will's arms. His heart was racing, his breath short and fast, but he hasn't felt safer in the last 18 months. At least what he thought was 18 months. He could feel himself tearing up as he let out choked sobs into Will's chest. He was hyperventilating now, which was a totally normal reaction given he just realized that the 18 months of hell he lived was fake and only took up 18 minutes of his life. After a while, when he calmed down, he felt several pairs of arms around him. Nancy's, Dustin's, Lucas's, hell, even Steve and Robin's. One by one, they all eventually let go at some point. So, what happened in there? You were in that trance for a while. Steve asks, with a bit of caution, and Mike scoffs. You have no idea. It was hell on earth, he said, arms crossed and leaning to the side of the radio tower. They don't say anything, as if expecting more. Mike sighs. I mean, we defeated Vecna, and Hawkins was no longer haunted by the Upside Down or anything, but he stopped himself. He knew if he wanted to keep Vecna's hands on him, he would need to come clean. But I've been lying to you. To all of you. He continues, and this earns a shift in position from everyone. He looks at Will, who shows total and utter sympathy. Little did Will know they were a little more similar than he thought. Mike continues. I've been keeping a secret for a while now, and Vecna showed me a future where I kept it to myself, a future where I was too afraid. Will straightens at his words. This sounds strangely familiar to the vision Vecna gave him. Mike seems to notice, and his breath hitches. And in this future, I end up alone in Hawkins. Everyone leaves. Elle died, and I just felt so alone and so scared, he says, hot tears running down his face now. Robin gasps slightly, looking at Will, who looks confused out of his mind. Mike looks up as Robin's gasped. Well, at least she knows now. He looks back down and continues, scoffing slightly. And I ended up a total loser. He starts a humorless laugh creeping in his voice. I looked exactly like my fucking dad, and I still kept the secret. After everyone left me, I was too much of a fucking coward to ever tell you guys. He's ridiculing himself now, wiping his face with the sleeve, taking off his stupid camo beanie, which let his black curly hair free, blowing slightly in the wind. He looks down at the beanie and sighs frustratedly. But then, when I was walking through the memories, the fucker decided to rub it in my face. He's angry now, hating that he was being forced out, like Will was. It wasn't fair. Mike, Will started, and Mike flinched slightly at his voice. That's not gonna happen, okay? He showed me the same thing when I was asleep and before I told you all. His voice is soft and warm, and the same voice reserved for Mike and Mike only, just like how Mike had a voice for Will. He hesitates and then nods. He looks up to Robin, the only one he for sure knows, who gives him a slight smile and nods. He looks down. I don't actually love Elle, he starts, earning wide eyes from everyone. He stammers, but continues. I mean, I do, but like, how I loved Dustin and Lucas and, God forbid, Max. He laughs slightly as he speaks. Bill looks down a bit disappointed. Mike notices and he wants to tell him, and he will. He just needs to tell him alone. He needs Will to hear it first. And I don't know. I think I was trying to love her because it was the right thing to do, and so I pushed you all away that summer, just trying to fix myself. He hopes that that's enough for them to understand. He looks up. Dustin, Steve, and even Jonathan look confused. Lucas and Nancy have this look of pity and realization on their faces, and Will looks normal. Mike can see the hint of shock, but overall he's acted normal. He hasn't moved away or moved closer. He's just there. And that really calms Mike down. He crosses his arms again, trying to get the point across for everyone. I guess I'm just trying to say that I'm gay. He looks down, waiting for the others to properly react. Oh, Steve says, looking at Robin, who gives him a concerned look. Oh, Mike repeats, burying his head in his hands. Robin elbows Steve in the ribs, which makes him wince. Mike swallows and continues. And I'm sorry for not telling you guys earlier. I just, he scoffs, wanting to sink into the ground. So much for Mike the Brave, he says bitterly, but then puts his hands back by his sides, forcing himself to look at them. I wanted to tell you guys after Will did, and I thought I could. He stops, trying to get his words together. I felt like I was still expected to be normal. That's the best he could word it. Will frowned. You don't mean that, do you? They chose to accept me. It would be no different for you. He reassures Mike. But he meant it. When Will came out, it gave him a whole new brand of hope. He felt like he could tell everyone that they would be cool with it, not disappointed. But then Will said he knew his crush, which Mike had connected the dots to it being him at the time, was not like him. And that sentence sent Mike back down his personal rabbit hole of fear. It only made this moment harder. Mike swallows. I don't know, it's just... He starts and sighs. I'm a fucking coward, aren't I? As he says that, he feels warm arms around his body, tight in a brace, smelling of that gross rose perfume he knew too well. Mike was startled by Nancy's sudden hug, but he melted into it, squeezing her as hard as possible. Took you long enough, Wheeler. Lucas chimes in, walking over to Mike and putting a hand on his shoulder. Thanks, guys. He wipes the tears that were in his eyes as he said it. It was easier than he thought. And with that, the group all, one by one, shifts themselves through the tear to the abyss, ending up in the dry, desert-like terrain. Mike and Will are walking together, which would make Mike nervous enough already, but now they were bumping elbows every other step, and each brush made fireworks go off in his mind. Will turns to Mike. So, that was unexpected, to say the least. Will tries to tease, but also just really wanting to cut through the silence. Mike chuckles dryly. I guess you didn't know me as well as you thought, he replies, which makes Will's eyes fill with guilt. Mike sighs. Chill, dude, I'm joking. He tries, and that seems to calm Will down a little. I guess you can consider it payback for you being oblivious for years, Will replies softly, clearly teasing again. Mike chuckles slightly and shoves him, still walking, which earns a goofy smile from Will. God, Mike was so in love. Did you mean it? Mike practically whispers, petrified of even bringing it up. What? Is all Will can get out, confused by the sudden question. What you said when I was in, a trance. Mike continues, still walking close to Will to show he wasn't scared or uncomfortable around him. Will's eyebrows furrow in deeper confusion until he understands what Mike is asking. Will starts, feeling his cheeks heat up immediately. Mike stares at him, waiting for him to respond. Will sighs in defeat. Yeah, I guess. Sorry. Mike looks at him, clearly puzzled. Sorry? Well, you don't need to be sorry. I think... He pauses. Was he really about to tell Will? What would he say? Would he still reciprocate? I'll always need you. I'll always love you, even if you don't love me back. The words echoed through his brain, having been placed there just 10 minutes ago. Mike takes a deep breath. I think what you said is the reason I was able to escape. Will lets out a small squeak as soon as he hears the words. Mike laughs dryly, looking to the ground as they continue walking. I know that, completely contradicts what I said, half an hour ago on the radio tower, but it felt longer than it was. They stay silent, shoulders still bumping with each step. It was 18 months of stupid denial bullshit, Will. I lost you. Will finally looks back up at Mike, who laughs when he sees just how red Will's ears were now. About what I said at the WSQK station about you not being like me, I had no idea, Mike, and I just feel so shitty for assuming anything. It's just that you and Elle were dating, and that pretty much cleared it for me that you were 100% not like me. It was selfish, and Mike listens to the boy rambling next to him, which was such an endearing sight. His panicked eyes, his honey brown hair that had been shining in the weird lighting of whatever dimension they were in, his hands rough and calloused. Mike could stare at him forever. In fact, there wasn't a single thought in Michael Wheeler's mind that didn't include grabbing the boy beside him and kissing him. And maybe he could. The rest of the group had gained on them, and Mike was sure they wouldn't be able to see anything should Mike do anything. Eventually, when he gathers the courage, he grabs hold of Will's hand, jolting the boy out of the rant he was having. It's okay, Will, he had said in his quote-unquote Will voice, which made Will's heartbeat spike somehow. Mike intertwined their fingers, using his other hand to cup Will's face. A pause. Mike could see how red Will was getting, and maybe an hour ago Mike would have ran away screaming from this moment. Instead, he kisses Will. He felt Will's soft lips against his. They were plump and tasted like honey, and that made Mike go crazy. Will melted into the touch, tangling his other hand into Mike's hair. They spent a good minute like that before breaking off. As much as I would love to keep kissing you, we kinda have to go kill an interdimensional monster, Mike says, smirking down at Will, who hides his red face in the crook of Mike's neck. So when Mike starts to walk again, Will holds him back for one more question. So, what exactly are we? He asks, avoiding Mike's eye contact as his face doesn't give up the tint of pink. Mike smirks. Well, if you want to be friends, that's okay. Oh, Will thinks. He knew what he was doing. Will pulls Mike down by the collar, staring at his eyes and then his lips. Friends? No way. A pause. Boyfriends. Mike smiles, pecking Will's lips once again before telling him one more thing. I love you, William Byers. Will's breath catches. He smiles warmly. I love you too, Michael Wheeler. Mike is totally grinning like an idiot, but he didn't care. Hey guys, come on, we gotta go! They both hear Nancy shout. They look at each other and laugh, Mike taking his hand again and dragging him with him. We have to fight this asshole who kidnapped my boyfriend when he was 12. I'm pretty pissed at him, so I'm eager to get it over with. Mike snorts as Will rolls his eyes. Let's kill the bastard. And with that, they eventually catch up with the rest of the group, running into what would be the most intense battle of their lives. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I spent a while on it. I think because of school, it took me like 2 to 3 days to write. It was like, I think around like maybe 6,000 words. And I was still waiting for my O3 invitation, so like, yeah. So yeah, this was my take on Conformity Gate, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. The next video will probably be me reading another one of my fanfictions. I've written 3 at this point. They're all one-shots. Okay, bye!